everybody, I'm Kate Foggo, this is Judy Hurt, and we are making light to humans being. This week, we're going to talk about challenges to unconditional love. So this came up, it was actually last week we were going to talk about it, but we chose the other subject. So the two of us along our journey are trying to aspire to that unconditional love. I mean, I don't know if you can ever expect to feel it as a human, but certainly, you know, it's there as a goal. And I think what had come up for me during the week were things where I'm not sure that even, you know, we react to things sometimes, and, you know, you can sort of see that all part of the spiritual training. Certainly the first thing I learned was about trying to step back and be observant, and the idea is that the more you do that, you can start to see in advance things coming towards you that you might react to. That it takes a while, and I don't know how far I've got, but the idea being that you are then prepared when it hits and can choose to react. You may react exactly the same way. The difference is you're not being dragged by your emotions. You are sort of choosing to react in a way so that you're not powerless in it. But what sort of for me was situations where you can observe them with clarity, or maybe not with clarity, with calmness, shall we say, as in not in the heat of the moment, but still can't, what's the word, find absolution for it. I don't know if that's the right word, but do you understand what I mean? Sort of like, I can see a situation where I know that I'm just not accepting of it, even through the calm, and even with empathic or compassionate eyes, I actually just can't get there. I cannot see that I can surrender to this experience and say, that's okay, I can just leave it be. I think that's really where we were going with that. Does that sum up our title, Julie? I'm not sure how gracefully I did that.
I think so. I think so. I mean, it's like how if from a spiritual perspective, like A Course in Miracles, the animals teach us about unconditional love. Even if I would say like mysticism or Christianity possibly as it was originally put together. I'm not, you know, there's much more in it about unconditional love and forgiveness than all of this fear and hate. And in the Course of Miracles is really about, you have a choice every single time between love and fear. And so once you know that, then it's like, how do you stay in this place of love? How do you look at something that you can't stomach, that you seriously do not agree with, and still see the divine within either the human being or the situation? And that's been actually a really interesting exercise over this last couple of years, because I do have my political views and my social justice views, and it's interesting as, not that I'm not saying it, because I could see now how somebody could think like, oh, well, you know, unconditional love would justify how I believe. And it's not like that. It's like, I have to be able to see somebody I absolutely do not agree with and still be able to see the divine within them and see that they're still.
And that's a challenge.
That is a humongo challenge, as well as understanding that they have a role to play in this universal co-creation. And then role may not be one that I find pleasant or that I find fun, but there is a reason as to why it's happening. And so that's, I think, part of the acceptance that you were starting to talk about too. And
I would add that actually, in terms of that, when somebody or something, and I can, you know, you're saying like, is someone, like, if I was in that situation, I'd probably try to avoid, because I don't feel I am able. So that's always, there's always a choice to avoid it. I think maybe it's better with an example. What were the examples we came up with? One of them was
you had said Judge Judy, but I don't know if
that's probably an easy one to no, I was just annoyed about that, actually. So I do like Judge Judy. I haven't watched her for years, you know, it's just good, but she's great. I don't know what it's like in the States, but she's on all of daytime in Britain. So if ever you get if I'm sitting down just for a few minutes on my own, I know it's something I can watch for a few minutes. I don't need the storyline. I don't have to follow what's going on. I can just watch it. And I really like her, but she is so intolerant of people who don't work, which I sort of understand, but this is our bugbear at the moment, that both of us are trying to prove that we are worthy in and of ourselves, as opposed to how much money we earn.
Right.
But it's when people are ill and she will still push it, like, and I know this is a really common position, I suppose, but it just breaks my heart knowing what I know now about not symptomless but invisible diseases, and knowing from my own experience of how and within the family as well, of how if you don't have your leg hanging off, or if it's not an obvious physical disability, or actually if you're just one of these people who really try to present normally because you don't want to be a victim, to have that shoved in your, it was just all of that. I don't actually know if that's a good example of unconditional love or lack of, but it was just one of those things that it really got me, that in so many ways she's very wise, but she is still it was a younger lady, and it was obvious to me that whatever was wrong with her was something fibromyalgia or ME or something like that, and she wasn't a layabout, and she was, there was no other reason, but she just gave her such a, basically told her off for being lazy and not having a job, and you're like, don't perpetuate this, don't perpetuate. Maybe it's not a good example of unconditional love, but there it is.
No, I do think actually
lack of unconditional love.
Yeah, I do think it's just a good example, because to me the partner of unconditional love is compassion. So
yes,
and a judge, right? I'm like, the role of a judge is to hear hopefully the full story and have compassion, and then decide what's the better, whereas justice served. It's interesting, because the other thing that comes to mind is, Judge Judy. Yes, I do believe she is actually a judge, but she's also she makes a lot.
The highest paid TV personality, Gary found out. I don't know what he was looking at. He was like, oh my god, it was something like 53 million a year, or because she just stopped.
Yeah. She's got like a great agent, and I think she's also her own savvy business mind or something. I've seen her in interviews and things like that. Yeah.
Really? I didn't even know she was anything outside of being judge. I just thought she was just someone they thought, this makes good viewing.
Yeah, no, she's a judge, but she's been able to like manage her own brand in a way that has then propelled her forward. But yeah, there's this whole idea of compassion when you watch a show like that, because it's very much, it's like sometimes a lot of those talk shows too, where they, I think you froze. So sorry for the little blip there. We've had Zoom issues, and Kate's machine, something has crashed twice. So sorry that the conversation kind of went, and we've now lost our thread, which we believe had something to do with, there's unconditional love, and an aspect of unconditional love is, at least for me, maybe I'll say it this way, maybe this is why it crashed, because I had I just got a little different way to say it. There's unconditional love, but a way to express unconditional love and seeing the divine in everyone is to have compassion for everybody, which I would even go one step further and say, I do believe what is happening in the world now is because we've gotten so disconnected from our inner beings, the divine source, whatever you want to call it, and that sense of integration and connectivity between one another. Because we've gotten there, that's why we're starting to see so much tumultuousness, because it's starting to, all this stuff is rising up so that we can clear it, so that we can have compassion. We can learn again to have compassion for one another, and realize that we're all in this together.
What would be interesting, because I know I have one, but just, do you have a definition of unconditional love? Because I remember first time I think I went on a Buddhist retreat, and now the quote was, I don't think necessarily from a Buddhist source or something, but one of the guys that led the thing, and I don't know if she was a poet, but it was that unconditional love was about recognizing that there were people besides yourself. It was something really simple like that. But the one I like is, I think it's Abraham Hicks, which is loving somebody without needing to change them. That to me is, because I think we all struggle with this idea of unconditional love, because it's not lust, it's not, I suppose fondness is, in fact, the thing that I dislike most about the book we're reading, the
Initiation.
Elizabeth Haich,
Haich, yep.
Haich, Initiation. Sorry, you said that. I just didn't think through. Is almost that unconditional love almost reaches a dispassionate. Is that the right word? Like it, you know, because it's about what is. Well, maybe this is digressing a bit, but it seems that if you get to that position of unconditional love, because you're not swayed by emotion, but then that sort of contradicts the compassion bit, which is interesting, because it did seem to me that the higher up you go, it felt like there was less compassion, but I think it's more that compassion is not for the individual, but for people as a whole. So looking at the biggest picture, and that you don't get sucked into the smaller stories of what's going on with people. I don't know, I'm not explaining myself very well there, but
no, I think you're fine. I've only gotten to I haven't gotten to chapter 37 yet, so
that's all right, as long as you finish it for next week.
I know. So we're gonna finish it now. How do I define, I'm gonna go back to how do I define unconditional love, and to me it's seeing the divine as well as myself in another entity. Because I won't say human being, because it's beyond human beings. It's trees, it's grass, it's animals, it's insects, it's everything. It's being able to see the divine in the divine in everything and everyone, as well as seeing myself. You know, even if I don't, and it doesn't necessarily, unconditional love does not mean that I accept somebody's bad behavior. It means I don't hate them for it. I'm not afraid of it. Instead, I'm like, I see that you're not doing that. I don't have to play with that. I don't have to go along with that. I don't have to accept it. I don't have to agree with you. I do see that you are also of the divine.
Yeah. And that kind of stuff is very good like that. I picked it up by mistake the other day, thinking it was something different, and was reading it back and I don't remember this, but his is very much about when people behave in a way that is that we would say is not great, shall we say, is recognizing that we're all behaving like that because we're in pain one way or the other, that every form of behavior that we don't like is because someone else is suffering. And if you're able to see that, then you are closer to being able to accept their behavior. And by accept, as you say, I do not mean condone.
Yeah.
It means you do what you're going to do over there. I'm just going to go over here for a bit, but I'm not going to react to what you do. And I'm also not going to, for agreements, I'm not going to take it personally, because what you are reacting to is in you, not in me.
Exactly.
They're so big though, all those, I mean, they're such simple words, but they're so big.
Oh, I know. And it's so fascinating to me, like so much of this journey, as we're focusing on this inner being growth and spiritual growth and all of that too, I keep coming back to how language is so limiting, and how one person reads something one way and takes it this way, but it's like, oh no, wait, if you look at like the original, and I'm even thinking of like the Bible, if you look at the original Aramaic in which it was written, it can be translated in a couple different ways, lots of different ways, depending on who's translating it, the language that's used, all that stuff. And you can see how things got distorted, and they keep trying to come back, particularly mystics keep trying to come back to, it just meant love everyone.
Yeah. But I think also, like, what is love? Because that's another really big question. We sort of think of it as this passionate, because I mean, I suppose the most obvious thing is, okay, what people feel for their children is maybe an easier one for people to understand. Obviously I don't, because I have children, but I do feel it for my cat. And I do think, actually, I would like to think that's closer to unconditional love, and it's probably easier with a cat than it is with children. However, it's not unconditional, because when Sally turns her nose up at me, except I'm paraphrasing, because she's not turning her nose up at me, she's just off doing something else because she doesn't give a toss. It's like that. Like, it's not personal. It's that, I do react to it. Therefore, it is not unconditional love. If she bit me repeatedly every time I went to see her, I would not still love her quite as much. I think I'd try for a little while, but it would begin to rankle.
Yeah.
It's not unconditional. It's probably a lot closer to the love I feel for any human in my life. But it's not unconditional, because unconditional means that whatever behavior she exhibited toward me, I would still love her just the same.
Yeah.
And that's where I think we fall down, is that it's not, love is not what we think it is. It's almost like we need another word.
Yeah.
Because I did think of, like, why do we love our families? Like, there is definitely a bond between, when I say family, I just mean people you spend a lot of time with. And I actually came to the conclusion that is it not just, what's the word? I'm really struggling with words today. I don't know if you noticed.
Okay.
Just being with somebody, exposure. It's almost like exposure to someone brings a relationship that we call love. Assuming, because and it is exposure, because if it's someone in your family and you don't get on, you still call it love, even though you don't like each other very much. You still call it love. And there is this understanding that there is a deeper bond between you, even though you're perhaps not very fond of each other at all. Like, in that to me is another. This is something I struggled with as a child. Is I didn't know at the time, of course, is that I knew that my parents loved me because they were the rules. Like, that was understood, that family loved each other. And I remember, even at a really young age, thinking, well, okay, I know my parents love me, which you'd think would be a good thing. But I thought that, but I knew they didn't like me. And that was just as hurtful. It was almost like love was just this rule that you loved your children and your children loved you, and that was just it. But there was no affection in there. There was no compassion in there. There was no gentleness, or it was just, of course I love you, you're my child. But I felt loved, because that was the word my parents used, but I felt unlikable, I suppose, would be what we, that they didn't like me very much because I was all these terrible things. I don't know what it was, but all of that. And again, it's like, but even neither of those is what we would call love.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah, because it's interesting to me, like, my, family is a really good way to practice unconditional love, because I have a hard time agreeing with much of my family. And that's actually, it's been interesting. Like, I know we've talked about in previous episodes in different situations or conversations, like, as a practice, stepping back from the emotion and my point is right, and I'm going to teach you and you need to change, and that type of a energy and feeling, and everybody else is wrong, and I'm right, kind of thing. Like, that's been the feel, or the energy in those conversations, is being able to take that step back and watching what's actually happening and saying, okay, I see the divine in you. I see the role that you've played in whatever co-creation, but in my life, how I feel, the things I've created, like, it's kind of fascinating. It's hard to do. It's not easy, because you want to get right in there and go, what the hell are you doing? But at the same time, it's like, oh, I see. It's a microcosm to be able to do this type of practice of unconditional love, because regardless of how they feel and what they think and how they judge, I still love them. I don't know my neighbors. I have new neighbors.
But do you, Julie? Is that love?
I do. And I guess, like, I do, because I do see, I don't understand it, but I see that they are here for a reason. I see that they brought me up. All the different things. I don't understand it. And you and I were talking just before we hit record that it's not, I just heard this the other day, and I'm not sure if it's from Marianne Williamson or Oprah, or if it was from you, but it's not my job here to understand. If I sit here and try to understand every single thing, which actually I was thinking about this in terms of all the books I read too, because I love to read and I'm super curious, but it's like, I'm not here to understand every single thing and how it works. That's the universe's job. I'm here to just love.
Also, if you did,
huh?
You did, there would be no learning experience. And that's what we're here for. But going back to love, I actually think that everything that we're discussing is nothing to do with love.
Love in the romantic sense, absolutely not. I agree with you.
Well, no, but even with family, I don't think that's love. As in, it's not unconditional love, because it feels to me that now, that is not to say that you can't form wonderful relationships with people who stimulate you, but if you took away family ties and you took away cultural obligation to an extent and exposure to people, because you do form a relationship with people over time, regardless of how you feel about them as individuals, there is some sort of bond that comes like a herd, I suppose. You become part of, but that aside, so I think you can have brilliant, fantastic relationships with people of either sex, be they passionate or friendship or whatever, or just artistic, or just a meeting of minds or spiritual, all those things. I'm not taking away from that. But it seems to me that the actual unconditional love side of the equation is about being, I don't know if dispassionate is the right word, being able to observe that we are all here as individuals to do what we came here to do, and nothing that anyone does to you is personal. Mm-hmm. It is almost, you are here, and because of this whole process we're all going through, I appreciate you for what you're bringing to the party, but it's not that it's not even fondness. It's a total acceptance that they are an individual and they have the right to be whoever or however they want to be. And that's not the same as fondness even. It's not the same as affection. It's not even compassion. It's more about, I see you and you're right to do whatever you want, or not whatever you, to do whatever you want and not take it personally. That's sort of what it looks to me when you look at the real higher realms of what unconditional love is.
Yeah.
That's confused you.
It hasn't confused me. No, it hasn't confused me. I think my question is, the word love seems to trip you up.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Because it'd be interesting how you define love. Because when I think of love now in this new, and for me, newer landscape of things, the whole universe is based on love. And you can either live in love or you can choose to live in fear. Like that, it's that type of there's really not a whole lot of gray between that either. It's either you can choose anything in love or you can choose it in fear. So, but love is, I agree with you, is not like romantic, passionate. It's not that. It's being able to hold something in a space of, I see you. I see that divine spark within you. I see that you're here for a reason. That aspect of it. Yeah, but if that's not what love is for you, then I can understand why that trips you up. It's almost like you strip all of there's love, and then there's all the human stuff. I was going to say crap, but all the human crap we put on love, the expectations that we put on love. Like, you must love me. You must do everything I ask you to do, whatever love, I'm just whatever.
Yeah.
The emotion and the passion and the sexuality and everything that goes around love. And it's like, you're right, from the initiation aspect, the book, you strip all that back and you have love. If God is love, or the divine is love, there is no wrong, there's only right, and you just have to follow the signs. Like, I can see it's just really simple. It becomes really super simple, if that makes sense.
Well, but what do you see that I don't? What do you see in love that you think I'm not seeing? Or I'm not saying not seeing, but what do you think I am?
It felt like you were you were creating a definition about love, which is, I'm not saying it's wrong or anything. It just felt like the word love itself was like for me, what's the word that I can't take? Oh, was it God? We talked about the word God for a long time. I had that same like aversion. It's almost like there's that, I don't know. I'm just saying.
I just don't think that love to me implies fondness, warmth, and I don't think they are part of unconditional love.
I agree. That's to me, that's part of the human crap that we put on the word love. Yeah.
And without it, there's a bit of me that goes, well, what's the point of because what is love if it's not fondness and warmth? I guess that turn into a counselling session for Kate.
I feel like there's love, and then there's fondness, and then there's warmth. And you can put them all together into one big hug. But there's still love.
I suppose maybe it's easier for me to think of it in the context of love and fear, because I can see absolutely.
Yeah. That's how
anything that is based in fear is the opposite of love, and I do see that.
Mm-hmm.
And I suppose that's interesting. That's something I'm going to have to meditate on. Mm-hmm. Is I do, and perhaps because I didn't have the warmth and the fondness, that's why I have such a thing about it, as that has to be. Because it's weird.
Yeah.
I just don't think any of us, and even when we talk about human love, I'm not sure what that is, other than exposure to someone and probably more tolerance and acceptance. And
what?
Because even with children, is that love, or is that
oh no, I've not had children. I have stepchildren.
Is that like mothering instinct rather than, like, is that love? I suppose it's closer because you love a child regardless of their behavior towards you.
Yeah, I mean, I've not had children. I have nephews and I have stepchildren, and I have heard mothers talk about the moment that child is placed in their arms, the love that they feel, that they would do anything for that child, is overpowering. That moment.
That's not how unconditional love is described.
That you would do anything for. Yeah.
Is it?
I don't know. It could be limited in language as far as they are. I don't know. I haven't had the experience, so it's really hard to talk to it.
Well, I think you feel it for your animals, because I do.
That's what I was just going to say. Yeah. I feel like when I look at Lucas, like, but here's the interesting thing with the animals, though, is it used to be with me and my animals, and this is my own growth, right? Is that because of this whole negative belief that I've had of not worthy, like I would look at my animals and, oh my gosh, I have to take care of you. Oh my gosh, you're defenseless. Oh my gosh, la la. And as I've moved through this journey, particularly with Lucas, who's like, I'll start to like, oh my gosh, Lucas, are you okay? And I hear him go, I am fine. Like, let's just hang.
Take care of yourself, love.
Exactly. Like when he broke my leg, it was the beginning of all of that. Like, I'm just gonna break your leg so you can get off your pins for a while and you can figure some shit out. but that I still would still do anything for him, and that's not how I define unconditional love. Now I just look at him and I'm like, he's his own being doing his thing. Luckily I get to work. He's working with me. Yay, me. But he's just like, I'm just doing my thing. I'm not going to judge you. I'm not going to not love you. I'm not going to not be here for you. Like, I'm going to do things for your greater and higher good. Maybe that's part of the definition. And maybe that's what mothers feel when the babies are, I will do what's in your greatest and highest good to the best of my ability.
Only we then get confused along the way about what that should be.
Well, we are human beings and we kind of are not perfect.
I certainly feel that about Sally. I now look at Sally as she's so wise. She is a bag of wisdom, and it's just like sometimes I catch her looking at me because she's sweet. Like, I know everyone thinks that animals are sweet, but there is a sweetness to Sally. don't get me wrong, she can be steely-eyed about some things when she wants something, but you know, sometimes she'll just be sitting padding away and like smiling with her face, and I just think she's just showing me that this is all about, and even is that love? Is that love? Sally shows me all the time that it's about how you feel.
Yeah, which to me comes back to love yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You know, compassion,
Yeah,
all those things.
she models it all the time, but you know, look, yeah, and the fact that she's found ways to make Gary and I laugh, and she's so blatant. Like now, the minute she was walking around, you know, I'm worried that she had a respiratory problem because she makes this funny noise. I have had her checked, and I had Danielle check in with her, that's our teacher.
Okay.
And she said it feels like she does this because it makes you laugh, because you focus on her, and that's what she does. And like blowing bubbles. But I'm listening to her, and I can hear her walking down the hall. Nothing. The minute she steps into the bedroom, so it's absolutely about us. There's no breathing issue here, and she does it because it makes us laugh, and that's something else that I'm learning from her. Is that, you know, and we've learned that with the animal communication, that levity is everything. If you can laugh about stuff, and raise your vibration, there is nothing that can't be made better by poking fun at it. So, you know.
Right. That's why satirical news is way more fun. And I learned so much more from like Jon Stewart and Trevor Noah and John Oliver. Yeah.
Oh, Trevor Noah. See now, he's South African, isn't he? Yeah, I'd seen him. I didn't realize I'd seen adverts for him. It must be about a year ago on Paramount. To watch stuff like that.
Yeah, so he took over from Jon Stewart, and that's where John Oliver came from, was Jon Stewart, as well as Stephen Colbert and who's the other guy? The guy from The Office, whose name fails me now. Everybody will know who I'm talking about. The main guy in the U.S. version of The Office, not Ricky Gervais. Oh, okay. Yeah, the U.S. version of The Office. The other guy. Anyway, but yeah, who was on the morning show? Now that we're like connecting dots. He's the guy that gets accused of all the sexual harassment on the morning show. He came from Daily Show with Jon Stewart.
The morning show, as in the program, I thought, as in the fictitious, I thought you were talking about a news thing.
Oh no, the fictitious.
Yes, I know who you mean.
I cannot think of his name.
I was going to say man with a big nose, but that's not.
Everyone watching this is screaming the name at the screen.
We'll put it in the notes just so that you don't have to write it and tell Julie.
I know the moment I come back. Yeah, anyway. That was a long story. Yes, Trevor. I love satirical news because to make fun of what's actually happening makes you laugh, which opens you up to actually, yeah, this is all kind of silly. This is all really silly.
It is. I mean, when you look at like what's going on in the world today, you know, I mean, I don't watch news or anything, but I was reading, I don't even want to go there, something about Britain's talking about sending illegal immigrants, of which the vast majority are asylum seekers, to Rwanda for processing. Right? I was like, I thought it was a joke. I couldn't even read about it. I was actually just sitting there going, do you know what? There's nothing I can read that's going to make this okay. I'm like that. I can't process this. I don't. There's a bit of me that really wants to know what's going on, and another bit of me goes, there is nothing in this information that is going to make you feel okay, Kate. Nothing. So just don't go there. Just look at your chicken bums. Because there is so much wrong. Anyway, let's not. You see, I feel even now I just want to cry with that such a thing could happen. Anyway,
we thought that one.
So there we go. There's an example. If I try and practice unconditional love about that, I would have to acknowledge, and I can acknowledge, that there are problems with immigration that are not easily solved, and that people that are making these decisions are trying to but do you know, I can't get there. This is an example. I can't get there. I can't see how there is nothing that anybody can, that's not true. There's always, you think you feel one way about something, and then somebody, and this is a really good example, isn't it? Somebody who you know and trust will inform you about something that you perhaps were not aware of, and it slightly shifts the perspective, and then you're like, okay. When you learn that perhaps the alternative is worse, or all of these things, but it's way above my pay grade and I'm not going there at all. But that is actually an example, isn't it, of
it is.
You can,
oh, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, if you can open yourself up to the possibility that there is stuff you don't know it all.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I will leave it there for myself. There's something in this proposition that I don't understand, and I will just have to trust the people who are making these decisions and will be acting in the greatest and highest good of all.
It's like the immigration issue to me is like, and I also look at it in terms of like, we're having the January 6 hearings that are televised right now on television. I watched one round. I don't know how much I'll watch of the rest, but I watch these big scenarios take place. And I see, because the Course in Miracles and other things also talk about the illusion that everything is based in fear and love. That's it. Everything else is an illusion. Money's an illusion. Time's an illusion. All the shit around me, an illusion. But I'm here to learn. I'm here to co-create, learn and co-create and whatnot with the divine. So I watch these scenarios play out, and you see all the people that are involved. And I'm like, in particular, like I was watching one of the January 6 hearings, and which was, for those who are not in the United States, that's when people stormed the Capitol and things ensued. And I'm watching like everybody that's on television. I'm watching the reporters that are reporting it. Everybody is there to serve a purpose, whether or not I agree with the purpose. And it's kind of fascinating to me, even like with the immigration issue, there are people that are creating the policies that are, for some reason, in that role to do that work for something. I'm never going to understand it, whether their work is based in love or fear. You can see the threads of some immigration policies that are based in fear and based in, because the other thing that feeds into fear is this other thing that I've been like swirling around about in this. We have a culture of lack versus a culture of abundance. Like a scarcity, like we believe everything is scarce and it's finite, like money's finite. Well, if money's finite, we wouldn't have as much money as we have today, because we would have run out about it centuries ago. So you can see how that scarcity mindset kind of feeds into the fear, which then dominates all the stuff. Whereas, I'm driving on the highway here, everybody's driving like a bat out of hell, but everybody came from someone else, part of a larger family, has people in their life that they love and they love by them, and they just have to get somewhere. So it's like, and I'm kind of going off on a tangent, but it's interesting. But a way to practice unconditional love is sitting in some of these really weird situations and going, okay, yeah, I see how you're trying to make the world a better place. Yeah. Not that I'm judging what they're doing, but even if I don't, like, there's certain people we'll just call them Voldemort. Those who shall not be named, for those of you who've read Harry Potter, I can see Voldemort, not a great guy in the books of Harry Potter, but he served a purpose and ultimately made Harry Potter better as a wizard. So there's all that type of situation in that.
From the very there is also, I just have a recollection now, standing at the coffee machine at work talking to somebody about probably terrorism or something. It was probably during the Iraqi war, or it would have been Iraq. And it, the criticism there is about ISIS and all, and just stuff like that. But the point is, the individuals who are involved in that believe that they are doing it for the right reasons. Just because you and I don't agree, right, and can feel quite strongly about it, you have to concede the fact that if somebody is willing to give their life and kill other people of something they believe in, you know, who am I to go, well, I don't believe all your shit, you're a bunch, you know, it's like, and just all these things, you know, you have to look at the perspective. At the end of the day, that's another human being who has the same, they may be different, but that has the same emotions and struggles, and as you say, has a family, has somewhere they need to go to, they leave people behind, they're trying to make a living just like everyone else, they have needs and all these things. And you know, there is no unless you think someone is possessed by the devil, at some level you have to go, well, they think they're doing it for the right reason. They have a reason to do what they do. And they're probably looking at me thinking that my lifestyle and the way I do things is absolutely abhorrent. They must do. Otherwise, we couldn't be in this situation. And that's the fear side, isn't it? Yeah. Is I look at them with eyes of fear, therefore how could anybody do this? And they likewise are looking at us going, well, I find your lifestyle abhorrent, and the only way I can show you how I feel is through what we would call atrocities, and they would call it
witch hunting. Okay. They would call it witch hunting.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, there's just no, but I guess I think the other example I had, and actually now in retrospect, I'm not sure it was okay, because it's so when you see, I'm not sure it's unconditional love, but I'll say anyway. So you know how like if you have someone who's very large on a plane now, and it impacts the people sitting next to them, and then there are people that say, well, if you are overweight, you should pay more. Right? I genuinely don't know how I feel about that, and I'm not sure this is a good example, because on the one hand, I have enormous sympathy for people, you know, when I'm not judging in my head, which I do a lot of, but when I am Kate the empath one-to-one with somebody, I totally understand how people, you know, nobody chooses to be overweight, nobody chooses to stay at that weight. So when you get to something like that, are all people equal? Is it right that they should pay more? Or, but on the other hand, if you're someone who has to sit next to someone and you can't fit in your seat, you know, and things like that, I find that really hard, because I don't know what the right answer is. And this is Kate looking for the right answer to be the good girl, to show her unconditional love, which we all know is all completely screwed up. But genuinely, I don't know what the answer is when there is no right answer, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, there is no right answer. There is an opportunity in a moment like that for you or me, if it was me in the seat, there's an opportunity in that moment to see what's actually triggered in me for the purposes of co-creation with the divine to make the world a better place, as well as, and I think the way to do that is to have a moment of practicing unconditional love for that human being. If I can see in that moment, am I going to be uncomfortable physically? Yes. Am I going to, should somebody pay for my uncomfortableness in that's a conversation. I don't know. I don't necessarily think so, but that's a different conversation. But when I can see as a divine having a human experience, another being that's the divine having a human experience, and their experience is very different from mine, in that moment, can I give them compassion? I mean, I just find like those moments, there is no right answer. It's just a moment of practice of it. You know, I always think of Dolly Parton. You're familiar with Dolly Parton, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. So here, and I might be maybe where you are too, but she's to some degree revered as like a really good model of unconditional love, or one of the best. Yeah, because she has, her audience is a huge diverse of people, and she's been really, she always how do I say this? She just approaches things. She approaches her songwriting. She approaches what she just love everybody is how, and if you ever hear an interview with her, she's actually really extremely spiritual, but she doesn't come at it with like, there's like spirituality on her sleeve. It's not like that. She just is. She's like the Dalai Lama, in my opinion. And she was on an award show. I might have said this in another episode.
Dalai Lama. Sorry.
They do say that to her. They do call her the Dalai Lama.
damn.
They do. She thinks it's funny. But anyway, she was on an award show where she was reunited with Jane Fonda and Lily Tomlin. They were all in the movie 9 to 5. And the two women who are on one side of the political spectrum were bashing the president that was in power at that time. And Dolly, who's like, I don't really want to get involved in the spectrum making of this or the politicizing of this. So she goes, after they both had their say, she said, we're just going to pray for that person. So I always think of that example, because that's hard to like look at somebody that you really cannot really empathize with or get along with and then pray for them. That's huge. And so like in the airplane seat, like I've been there, like when I came back from Alaska, I saw really large people that I knew I could potentially sit next to, and they looked so uncomfortable.
Yes. And I just want to say, it was not from the perspective of me being the person next to them. It's about, is it right that they should pay for 2 seats or not? That was the sort of, it wasn't about me as an individual.
I went,
it's,
sorry.
No, that's fine. But
and see, to me, that's that scarcity mentality. Should someone pay? Should someone be penalized? Should someone,
yes,
if there's not enough to go around?
But from an airline's perspective, no, actually, fuck that. I don't care what the airline. Yeah, you're right. You know, I suppose I'm just thinking from a business perspective. Is it fair that they, you know, that's when I get and like, who cares? It's not like they can't afford it.
Right. I mean, we could detour off right now into oil companies are making record profits right now, but I won't do that. Because I'm like, there is enough to go around, oil companies. Could you not? But okay, whatever. That's what you want to do. I pray for you.
It's beyond me. I made the mistake of I'm getting sucked into it's not news. I just sort of, it was like there was an interview that was supposedly explaining why the oil companies, why reducing their profits was not a good, and I couldn't even get past the first sentence because it's like it, you know, it was something to do with, well, if you cut their profits at a time like this, there's going to be no future investment. You're just like, really? Like, really? That's what you come up with?
Yeah, and that's a fear-based response. If you do this, bad things will happen. Yeah.
It's also clearly complete fucking nonsense.
Makes no sense. I know the fear stuff makes when you really kind of look at the world through this love and fear thing, you can see like, oh my, and then you know what happens to me is I see all the things that were created in fear and I'm like, how in the hell are we ever gonna, and it's like, oh, not up to me to understand.
No, and that was the Abraham Hicks I've told you about, when she goes off on a rant about the Middle East and all of that, and it's like, you can't fix it. This can't fix it. I've been doing these inner voice sessions, and I've tried it out on a couple of people I work with and stuff, but it's really good. And the one that the lady I was watching do it, she's just going, just breathe, the mind doesn't know, just breathe, the mind doesn't know, and she just keeps, she says, just let it go. She goes, the mind doesn't know the answer. And it's so true. And it's like, all of this is, we can't work it out. So all you have to do, we're back to leading from the heart then, aren't you? It's like, you can't work this shit out. All you have to do is look towards the light, I suppose. Gosh, that's such a cliche.
Well, and like, and look inward, I would say, like, the love yourself, like it has to start from here. Oddly enough, you know, but in a fear-based culture, we've been taught this is selfish because we're afraid of what's in here. Like that, so you can see how it even starts back then.
My focus of my healing is at the moment self-love, and I can see this magnificent picture of not the future, well, it is the future, but it's like, I believe it, you know, I'm not putting it out there, I'm saying I'm on my way there. And that is that when you are completely loving and accepting of yourself, see, I long for that. We talked about this, is it agape? Mm-hmm. Agape. Mm-hmm. I long to look at someone and feel that, you know, we are all one thing. I don't feel that. I don't feel it for things that I do love, never mind random strangers. but I look forward to that. But I know that actually starts with me, because until I can feel that for myself, and I'm beginning to see now that that's what has to happen, is I have to be totally accepting of who I am with all my faults and all features or whatever they are. And when I'm in that position, it will spill out to other people.
And even when you take the first step, like, you don't have to be perfectly in that situation or that feeling. It's just when you begin to take that first step. And
I have felt that. I feel a softening around the edges, shall we say. You know, I have done nothing this week, because not nothing, but I've had friends staying and that. I'm not giving myself a hard time, trying not to anyway. It'll get done.
Time is an illusion. Do not come at time as a scarcity model. It is abundant. It is an
yes, and it is, because who's counting?
Right. Yeah.
I don't know if we covered unconditional love, but we certainly put a few things out there, Julie.
I do, yeah. Well, yes, the idea of love, fear. I find that to be helpful in grounding myself in as I work towards unconditional love, which by the time I reach it, I'll die and probably not be reincarnated.
Why?
Because once you get to that point, right, it's like you served your purpose as the divine having the human experience, you go on to do something else completely different. So I've learned, been told.
I don't think that, I don't think my goal is that lofty. Because as you say,
your soul goal ultimately, isn't it?
Yes, but I think what I'm looking for now, and I think this is a damn good reason to do it, is not to be a good person. I cannot stress that enough if anyone hasn't got that yet from listening to us. It's about finding the joy yourself. So that's why I'm doing it, for entirely, utterly, completely selfish reasons, is when you can look at people and be unaffected by how they behave and see. And I don't even need to love them. I would like to just be unaffected by them, as in to be able to observe somebody and go, okay, and not react. That's the goal for me, because therein is peace. That nobody can do anything that hurts you, because you are unhurtable, as this is what not Esther, Abraham Hicks would say. Your goat has to be ungettable. You cannot blame people. You can never hide enough from everything. Like, if it's not your neighbours, it's going to, like I say, I always say, if I went off and lived in a cave, if it's not my neighbours, if it's unresolved in here, it's going to be a bear or a moose or an owl or somebody, until I'm okay. And when I'm ungettable, nobody can get me. And that's my goal, to live in peace.
Yeah. That's wonderful.
I'd still probably choose not to watch the news. I wouldn't want to test it.
Well, no, if the news brings you down, then that's, well, we could go into the news being fear-based anyway, but that's a whole other topic. The news keeps us locked in this cycle of fear instead of a cycle of love.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, further than the news, I would say almost all television now, they've found so many programs that used to be, I would say, neutral, have been amped up to be about fear and panic and scarcity. And it's almost like if it doesn't have that edge to it, people aren't interested. Like, I quite like watching just sort of nice, easy, bumbling along, pleasant, people are nice to each other. There's nothing wrong with that.
Not at all. We need more of that. More love, less fear. Well, that was our conversation around unconditional love. What is it? How do we practice it? But really, more importantly, what is it? So this is Julie here. With me, as always, is Kate Fago. This is Making Light Two Humans Being. Thank you so much for being here and watching this week's episode. If you have any comments or questions or even ideas for topics, please leave them in the notes below. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram as well. You can subscribe. You can hit the little bell to get notified when there's a new episode. And if you're so inclined, we would super appreciate it if you'd share the episode with somebody that you love unconditionally
or just someone you love
unconditionally. I know, I'm trying not to judge and put that on there. But if you'd share the episode just so that more people can find us, that would be wonderful. Thanks again for being here, and we'll see you next week.